Well, the war drums are pounding. Can you hear them? They are determined to take us to war. Um, Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. We're going to talk about that today. It is coming. They're determined to get us into a world war, and it's going to affect you, and it's going to affect your family. It's going to affect your kids. It's going to affect your grandkids. It's going to affect your economic situation. It's going to affect everything. And we are not in the positions that we were before, where we entered major conflicts from kind of a position of weakness. We are entering in a position of weakness now, but we are in a position of having much of the fabric of our country destroyed. And that makes it much. This is going to be a war for the globalists. So I want to talk about that today. By the way, those of you who are following along over on Patreon with the reading, the Audible of the Revival, I just put up chapter 6 or 7, I don't remember. But I just put up the most recent chapter of the Revival. It's now available over the first 6 or 7 chapters. Are now available on the Patreon channel at the Stonemont level. So if you want to follow along with it, and I just read a chapter, I had forgotten. It's been a number of years since I wrote these books. I'm enjoying going through the story again, but I just read a section that applies to what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to read you a section out of it. And then we'll talk about it. I'll just get right to that, and we'll talk about it. If you're not with us on Patreon, the link is down below. Love to have you over there. There's a lot more information over there about preparedness and all sorts of things than there is on YouTube. The link's down below, and the audibles of the books. I've already put up, I should say this for those wondering, what's he talking about? I've already put up the audible of the first book of the Stonemont series, The Reversion. So that complete book is up over there. And now, of course, we're working on the Revival. So I'm going to read a short portion here, and then we're going to discuss this. The scene, as we enter the scene, is the Stonemont Corps is meeting to discuss whether they should maintain their defensive position or whether they should adopt an offensive position as a way to preemptively address a growing threat they've just learned about to their north. And so I'll read this introduction, then we'll get into it. Jim looked at those around the table. He had feared that this would eventually happen, that they would be forced to make a decision as to whether to remain primarily defensive or develop a permanent offensive capability. This is going to apply to our country and to your life. He felt that going after Grimm was the right thing to do as long as there still appeared to be innocent and defenseless people alive in the area, but he wanted everyone to express their opinion. He got up from the couch and walked to one of the bookcases. Has anyone read Smedley Butler's War is a Racket? And if you haven't, here it is. If you haven't, you should. This should be the very next thing you read. I'm going to explain. I explain in the book. In my books, I explain so much. People don't realize. I explain the causes of that war between the states. I explain a lot of history that people have never heard and don't realize. And then I teach about things like this, about Smedley Butler. That's why historians love my books. So he got up from the couch. Has anyone read Smedley Butler's War is a Racket? He asked. I have, answered Tom. So have I, said Mike. Jim nodded. I figured the Marines would have. Tom is a retired Marine officer, head of Stonemont's intelligence. Mike is a retired Marine recon, head of the Scouts. He pulled a thin book out of the case. Butler was an amazing guy. He lied about his age to get into the Marines as a second lieutenant at 17 years old, then rose to the rank of Major General, the highest Marine rank at the time. When he retired after over 30 years, he was the most highly decorated Marine in history at that point in time, including 2 Medals of Honor and 1 Brevet Medal. He started leafing through the pages. Butler came to believe, and here we're reaching the point, that war was mainly a tool of business interests, and that the military was often used improperly to further those interests at the expense of those doing the fighting. Essentially, he came to disagree with any internationally offensive use of the military. Okay? This isn't a peacenik. This is a Marine officer, a Marine Major General. He stopped on the page he had been looking for. He said, essentially, that he believed in defense at the borders and coastline and nothing more. Defense at the borders? He looked around at the group. He also addressed what I have long felt to be a major problem when it comes to building a military or any fighting force. Let me read directly from his book. He held the book up to read. Beautiful ideas, now here's a quote from Butler's book. Beautiful ideals were painted for our boys who were sent off to die. This was the war to end all wars. This was the war to make the world safe for democracy. No one told them that dollars and cents were the real reason. No one mentioned to them as they marched away that their going and their dying would mean huge war profits. No one told these American soldiers that they might be shot by bullets made by their own brothers here. No one told them that the ships on which they were going to cross might be torpedoed by submarines built with United States patents. They were just told it was going to be a glorious adventure. Do any of you remember any of those World War I songs that everybody loved to sing? Thus, having stuffed patriotism down their throats, it was decided to make them help pay for the war too. So we gave them the large salary of $30 a month. All they had to do for this munificent sum was to leave their dear ones behind, give up their jobs, lie in swampy trenches, eat canned willy when they could get it, and kill and kill and kill and be killed. He looked around the group. Some of us here know how easily young men can be made to think that war and violent interaction is exciting and something to be pursued. It appeals to our sense of adventure and our inherent need to prove ourselves in great causes, to save the damsel and the world, so to speak. Eventually, if it doesn't destroy us physically, it becomes addictive and threatens to destroy us mentally, even morally. He tossed the book on the table. I got out of that business years ago and swore I'd never get back into it. But now here we are. He paused again, thinking, I will not be a part of convincing fine young people to sacrifice their lives or their well-being under the guise of adventure or heroic deeds. Yet I can't stand by and allow innocent people to suffer unbelievable horrors because of my refusal to act. And then I go on and explain quite a bit more of that. But the reason that I wanted to read that is that what they're doing right now is the same that they've done in every war to get the fervor of patriotism and the American blood boiling and ready to, if not ready to go to war, at least excusing the going to war by the government. They lied to get us into World War I. Heck, they lied to get us into the war between the states. They lied to get us into the Spanish-American War. They lied to get us into World War I. They lied to get us into World War II. They lied to get us into Korea. They lied to get us into Vietnam. They lied to get us into the Gulf War I. They lied to get us into GWAT. And still, they are never held accountable. The purpose for all these wars has been money, as Smedley Butler says, money for the upper 0.1% at the expense of those who go and do the fighting because they have been made to believe it is their patriotic duty, and that by them going, they are serving a higher purpose. Yeah, the higher purpose is money in the pockets of people like Biden and Soros and the WEF and all that. That's the higher purpose. But they're going to do it anyway. And what you really want to think about, and we could talk about this for a long time, what you really want to think about is how this affects you. It's going to affect you, whether it affects your family through a renewed draft. And I had somebody ask a question about that over on the Patreon channel, and I said, Hondo Bob, one of our highly esteemed patrons over there, he retired military and then retired contracting after that. So he has vast experience in this. He explained that he didn't think a draft was going to be implemented, and this was in one of my past videos over there, I think, it had to do with the draft. Are they going to reinstitute the draft? He went into great detail about explaining why he didn't think that they would or even could at this point. And I think it made a lot of points. So if you're go over there and just put in the search draft, and you'll probably bring that up and his response. It's interesting, and I won't get into a lot of detail. I don't believe in a draft because I don't believe in compulsory public service, and others disagree. We're not going to get into that here. And I haven't. This isn't an idea that's just come to my mind. Hey, I've been thinking about this since I went out to the draft board. Okay, and I have come to the conclusion I do not believe in it for the simple fact that there is an implied ownership of the individual if there is a compulsory service. But anyway, let's don't argue that here. I'll make another one about that, and if you want to argue then you can. You saw also, if you didn't, maybe this was also just on Patreon that I put up how the Army has done an emergency call up of NCOs all over the place and had them report to recruiting training. So 800 new recruiters because they can't meet their recruiting goals. And that means, of course, they need more people. Why do they need more people? They need more people because so many good ones have gotten out, and apparently they're fixing to do something they need more people for, right? Okay. You need to prepare with the assumption that we are soon, what soon means, who knows, next week, next year, right before the election, right after the election. That could be another thing. But you have to operate on the assumption that we are soon going to be at war, and that war is going to be all out. And maybe not nuclear. I know a lot of people are out there kind of scaring people with nuclear and all that. I don't know. Who knows? Calmer minds, even on the other side, don't want a nuclear war. But then we got crazy people, too. It could happen. It could not happen. If you want to dig a bomb shelter, go ahead. I come to them from the day when people were digging bomb shelters in their backyards. And I'm not going to say it won't happen, but it's not necessarily what I'm mostly worried about. You may have a different opinion. But when we get into this war that they're driving us into, it's going to be all out. And I think that our country is going to find itself in an extremely weak position. And I don't mean necessarily weak militarily. We have a fine military. I mean, there's still some exceptional people in the military. There are a lot of duds in the military too. And I don't say that to demean the military, but not everybody in the military nowadays, or any day to be honest, are the cream of the crop. And so a lot of the really good ones have left, and our technology is excellent. So we have excellent people out there. Excellent people. We probably don't have enough of them. And they're being misused, and in many cases mistasked, misled, all sorts of things. That's why so many of them got out. We might have, technically, the best military in the world. The best militaries in the world have been defeated time after time after time. right? How was our country founded? Well, a bunch of farmers and shopkeepers with muskets rose up against the greatest military the world had known up to that point, right? So to think that we would not possibly fall to that same low intensity, low tech threat, that I think that's unreasonable to assume that. But how it's going to affect us, we are weakened economically. I'm going to do another one on that. People are living at the edge of their money. Personal bankruptcies are up. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. Mike Hoskins put up a great article about that over on the Patreon channel on the member posts. Make sure that you are going to the member posts page, which you have to do through a browser. It can't be done through the app on Patreon. Put up a great article that I'm going to do a separate video about when I get a chance, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. But we are weak economically. We are weak socially. We have no social cohesion here in the United States anymore. We have no community cohesion. As I said yesterday, I think the fabric of our country has been ripped to shreds. There is no American spirit as we once thought of it. That puts us in a position of great danger. But what you can do for yourself is what's important. Prepare yourself, as I started to say, for all-out war. Now, what does that mean? That means shortages. That means shortages in things that you need. And then things that you want. The wise person, the wise prepper, first gets everything they think they're going to need for a long time, not for 3 months. Okay, not for 3 months. And if any of you are out there or among the newer, preparedness-minded people, good for you. Congratulations, welcome. Continue to do that. If you only have 3 months, good for you. Work for 6 months. Work for a year. Work for as long as you can. But the successful and wise prepper, once they've had time and the resources to get there, has everything they will need for a long time. And then they start putting on top of that everything they will want. Wants being different than needs, right? We talk about the fact that we need to prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I keep pounding on that. Don't just survive. Those of you who have parents, my parents were a World War II generation. My father fought in Europe. They came out of the Depression. They knew about deprivation. They knew about saving. They knew about not being able to get sugar, not being able to get tires, not being able to get nylons, not be able to get all of these things because everything was being pushed to the war. Well, now, does that mean that it went to all the guys? Hell no, it went to the defense contractors. Get everything you need. Get everything you want. Solidify your group, solidify your family. Have all the methods of self-defense that you're going to need, because as they start to go to war wherever around the world, the security here at home, as far as criminal activity, is going to collapse. Now, the security on you, the surveillance on your texts and phone calls and everything, that's going to increase exponentially. They're going to care about everything you say, do, think, whatever. The security state is going to explode. But as far as safety and security here at home, no. It's going to further devolve. Street crime, gang crime, all this stuff, it's going to be a mess because our country has castrated itself. They have stopped supporting the police in so many places, maybe not where you live, but in so many places. Okay, they have encouraged aberrant behavior amongst large sections of our society, from which we get, more than half the kids being born out of wedlock. Bred essentially to populate jails, to destroy the country from within. Well, we are within the country that they are destroying. And when they start fighting that war and trying to come after us and our children and grandchildren to satisfy their personnel needs, to go out there and get killed so that George Soros can make more money and such, you're going to have some serious choices to make. Think about what those choices are. Maybe we'll discuss those over on the Patreon channel. I don't get into details about that stuff on YouTube. Think about those things. You're going to have some serious choices to make. But you need to prepare for every eventuality you can imagine and do it now. Okay? All right. Join us again, like I said, over on for the reading of the revival on the Patreon channel. And as I always say, this and all my videos are brought to you by the Stonemont series, my series of books in which I give you the complete plan for preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything. They're available on Amazon or through our website, stonemont.us. So get at it. Get out there and do it. Realize the seriousness of the situation, because it'll be here before you know it. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. You are going to live as well tomorrow as you prepare to live. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.